What happens when the human soul awakens one morning and finds itself imprisoned in the body of a monster? This is the question Franz Kafka whispers to us in the Metamorphosis. But the story is not about insects, nor about grotesque transformations. It is about you, about me, about the way society consumes us until we are no longer recognizable, even to ourselves. Published in 1915, just as the industrial world was tearing itself apart in the Great War, Kafka's masterpiece emerged from a Prague caught between empires, languages, and identities. Here was a Jewish writer, writing in German, living under Austrian rule in a Czech city, a man who understood transformation and alienation at the deepest level. Today, over a century later, Gregor Samsa's story feels more urgent than ever. In our age of digital surveillance, gig economies, and social media performances, we might ask, have we all become insects? Have we all undergone our own metamorphosis, one so gradual we failed to notice? Gregor Samsa wakes up as a bug. Why? Kafka never tells us, and this silence is the first philosophical clue. Gregor was not transformed because of sin, nor because of magic, nor because of fate. He was transformed because his life had already been reduced to that of an insect. Consider Gregor's existence before the change. He was a traveling salesman, grinding away, his body worn down by endless train journeys and hotel rooms. His identity was chained entirely to his job. He worked not for himself, not for fulfillment, but to pay off his father's debts, a debt that, tellingly, we learn was never really explained or justified. His value as a son, a brother, a human being, was measured only by his productivity. His worth was purely transactional. When Kafka turns him into a bug, he is not creating a fantasy. He is holding up a mirror that reflects the industrial age's reduction of human beings to mere functions, to cogs in an economic machine. Think of Charlie Chaplin in modern times, trapped in the factory machinery, his humanity subsumed by the rhythm of production. Or consider today's gig workers, rated by algorithms, reduced to star ratings and delivery times. How different is this from Gregor's existence as a traveling salesman, valued only for the orders he could bring in? A mirror in which many of us might recognize ourselves. The German word Kafka uses for Gregor's transformation is Verwandlung, which doesn't just mean change, but a profound alteration of essence. Yet the question haunts us. Did Gregor's essence really change, or was it finally revealed? Soren Kierkegaard once wrote, "The greatest hazard of all, losing oneself, can occur very quietly in the world, as if it were nothing at all." Gregor's metamorphosis is this hazard made visible. Even before his physical transformation, Gregor had lost himself. He did not play music, though we learn he had once planned to send his sister to music school. He did not pursue dreams of his own. He did not love freely. He worked, he traveled, he obeyed. His internal monologue on that first morning is telling. Even as he discovers his transformed body, his primary concern is not horror or confusion. It's missing his train, disappointing his boss, failing in his economic duty. The human consciousness persists, but it's a consciousness already hollowed out by capitalist logic. This connects to Karl Marx's concept of alienation, the idea that under capitalism, workers become estranged from their own labor, their products, their fellow workers, and ultimately themselves. Gregor embodies this alienation taken to its logical extreme. His life was already a kind of non-life. The insect body is only the truth finally showing itself, what the French existentialists would later call bad faith, the denial of our own freedom and responsibility. But Kafka goes deeper than economic critique. He's exploring what Hannah Arendt would later call the banality of evil. How ordinary life can become monstrous through simple conformity and the abdication of authentic choice. And isn't this the terror Kafka reveals? That alienation doesn't begin with a monstrous transformation. It begins with every compromise of the soul. Every morning we wake up and feel like strangers inside our own lives. Every time we silence our inner voice for the sake of fitting in. Every time we choose security over authenticity. Every time we reduce ourselves to our social roles, parent, employee, consumer, and forget the irreducible mystery of our own existence. In our digital age, this alienation takes new forms. We perform versions of ourselves on social media. We optimize our lives for productivity apps. We measure our worth in likes, shares, and followers. Are we so different from Gregor, trapped in forms that no longer feel like home? The true horror of Gregor's transformation is not the body he inhabits, it is the way others see him. At first, his family hides him, tolerates him, keeps him alive out of duty and perhaps vestigial love. But soon, the mask slips. They grow ashamed, then disgusted, then openly hostile. His sister Greta, once his closest ally and the one person who seemed to understand him, becomes his most vehement enemy. She begins as his caretaker, bringing him food, cleaning his room. But as months pass, she transforms too, from loving sister to cold pragmatist who declares, "We must try to get rid of it." His father, already a figure of patriarchal authority, grows violent, literally driving Gregor back into his room with thrown apples, one of which embeds in his back like a wound that never heals. The apple, biblical symbol of knowledge and sin, suggests that Gregor's crime is the crime of revelation, of showing his family what they'd rather not see. His mother oscillates between love and revulsion, unable to reconcile the son she knew with the creature before her eyes. Kafka shows us a brutal truth. For many, love is conditional. Affection is tied to utility. A family, a society, a system will embrace you so long as you serve a purpose. But when you fall outside the machine, when you can no longer contribute to the economic or social order, you risk being discarded like an insect crawling on the floor. This reflects what sociologist Zygmunt Bauman called liquid modernity, a world where relationships, like everything else, are temporary, disposable, subject to cost-benefit analysis. Love becomes a transaction, care becomes conditional, but Kafka's insight cuts even deeper. The family's horror isn't just about Gregor's appearance, it's about what his transformation reveals about them. His metamorphosis forces them to confront their own capacity for cruelty, their own reduction of love to economic exchange. Notice how the family flourishes after Gregor's death. They move to a smaller apartment, make new plans, even notice how beautiful Greta has become. His death liberates them, but into what? Into the same system that originally consumed him. The landlord, the chief clerk, the lodgers, all represent the broader social machinery that reduces humans to functions. They see Gregor not as a suffering being, but as a problem to be solved, an obstacle to be removed. But perhaps Kafka offers us more than despair. Perhaps the metamorphosis is not just about Gregor becoming an insect, but about us recognizing our own state of existence. Carl Jung might have said that Gregor's transformation was the eruption of the shadow, the unveiling of the hidden self society refuses to see. The monstrous bug is not Gregor's downfall, but his truth. Sometimes we must become monsters to recognize our humanity. Friedrich Nietzsche wrote of becoming who we are. But what if who we are is already monstrous? What if the transformation is not degradation but revelation? There's something almost mystical in Gregor's new form. He can climb walls and ceilings. He sees the world from impossible angles. He experiences reality in ways human consciousness cannot access. His transformation, while isolating, also opens new perceptions. This connects to shamanic traditions, where transformation into animal form represents spiritual awakening. The shaman must die to their human self to gain deeper wisdom. Perhaps Gregor's suffering is a form of dark enlightenment. In Buddhist terms, his metamorphosis might represent the dissolution of the ego self, the recognition that our human identities are constructions, not essential truths. His insect form becomes a meditation on impermanence and the illusion of fixed identity. The German Romantics spoke of Verwandlung as spiritual transformation. Kafka, writing in their tradition, might be offering us a path through degradation to a deeper understanding of what it means to be human. In a sense, Kafka forces us to ask, what is my metamorphosis? Am I already living as an insect, stripped of freedom, reduced to function, forgotten by those I love? Or can I choose to transform differently, to embrace a metamorphosis of the soul rather than one of decay? Today, Kafka's vision feels prophetic. We live in an age of constant surveillance where algorithms track our every click and purchase. We perform ourselves on social media, curating identities that feel increasingly artificial. We work gig jobs that offer no security, no community, no meaning beyond the next task. How many of us wake up feeling trapped in lives that don't fit us anymore? How many feel reduced to their productivity, their output, their economic value? The pandemic revealed how quickly we could be deemed essential or non-essential, categories that echo Gregor's family's eventual judgment that he has become a burden rather than a benefit. But Kafka also shows us the possibility of recognition. Once we see the insect we've become, we can begin to choose our transformation consciously. We can refuse to be reduced to mere function. We can insist on our full humanity, even when, especially when, that humanity appears monstrous to others. Gregor Samsa dies alone. His body is discarded like garbage. His family moves on, relieved, already planning their brighter future. It is a bleak ending, but perhaps, hidden inside, there is a strange form of liberation. Because Kafka does not ask us to pity Gregor, he asks us to wake up, to look at our lives before they become grotesque, to recognize the metamorphoses already underway in our own existence. The story's power lies not in its surrealism, but in its realism. Kafka shows us that the monstrous is ordinary, that transformation is constant, that alienation is the water in which we swim. But awareness is the beginning of choice. Once we see the insect, we can choose to remain one, or we can choose a different kind of transformation, to question, what have I become, and what am I becoming? The true metamorphosis is not Gregor's, it is ours. And unlike Gregor, we still have time to choose what we transform into. In the end, Kafka's Metamorphosis is not a story about becoming an insect. It's a story about becoming human, about the constant work of creating and recreating ourselves in a world that would reduce us to functions, to roles, to commodities. The question is not whether we will transform. We are always transforming. The question is whether we will choose our transformation consciously or let it happen to us while we sleep. What will you choose to become?